The first thing I want to talk about is, can the Boston Celtics win 74 games this season? Now, before we get crazy in the comment section, before people rush to my comment section and say, oh, we've had such a big gap since the team has won 70 games between 1995 and 1996, all the way to 2015 to 2016. That's about a 20-year gap. So to say the Boston Celtics can win 74 games is kind of crazy. But I do like to think that there are some similarities between this Boston Celtics team and the 2015-2016 Golden State Warriors team. The first thing I want to talk about is a lot of people that would go against the fact that the Boston Celtics can win 74 games. And one of the biggest things I've heard is the NBA is a really big talent gap since 2015-16 all the way to 2024-2025. Now, I want to say that I've heard a lot of people say that there are not a Nets team, there's not a 76ers team, not a Lakers team, not a Suns team, not a Timberwolves team that has all finished under 30 games. And if we look at the schedule for the Golden State Warriors have played the Brooklyn Nets twice, won both of those games. The 76ers twice, won both of those games. The Lakers 4 times, went 3-1 against that team. The Suns, they went 4-0, and against the Timberwolves, they went 3-0. And for a team to go 73-9, you really have to take advantage of the teams that you are way better than. And the Golden State Warriors had a significant talent gap against these teams and majority of the other teams in the NBA. But I would debate that with the Boston Celtics also having teams in their NBA era with guys like the Detroit Pistons, the Washington Wizards, the Brooklyn Nets once again. And there are a lot of teams in the NBA that are just not as talented as the Boston Celtics. This year, per ESPN, there are 6 teams projected to win under 30 games. And those 6 teams are the Pistons, Nets, Hornets, Jazz, Blazers, and Wizards. And if we look at the Boston Celtics schedule, they play the Pistons 3 times. They play the Nets 4 times due to division. They play the Hornets 3 times. They play the Jazz twice, the Blazers twice, and the Wizards 3 times. And one of the advantages I believe that the Boston Celtics have that the Golden State Warriors did not, the Boston Celtics are in the Eastern Conference, which has been the weakest conference in the NBA for the past few years now. So that means they're going to see a lot lesser teams with a lot lesser talent, whether it's projected to have under 30 wins or not. You're still going to have to see the Bulls multiple times, the Raptors who are in their division multiple times. You're going to have to see the Heat, which there's a significant talent gap. I would think that the Boston Celtics can go on a roll just big enough to where they can find themselves maybe 30-3 or 35-2 or something like that, to the point where they get so deep into the season, maybe 30 games into the season, they look up and they're 31-2 and they're like, why not go for the record? If we just look at some of the Eastern Conference teams that the Celtics have a sizable talent gap that they would be significant favorites if they were to match up home or away in the Eastern Conference, I think there are a majority of teams in the Eastern Conference I would pick the Celtics for, whether it's against the Wizards, the Nets, the Pistons, the Bulls, the Raptors, the Hornets, the Hawks, the Heat, the 76ers, the Bucks. There's a significant talent gap, just like the Warriors had back in 2016. On top of that, you're going to see a lot of teams in the Western Conference twice a year that you have a pretty high, significant talent gap above as well, like the Utah Jazz or the San Antonio Spurs, who are still projected to have over 30 wins, but I do not think is a 30 to 33 win team. The Houston Rockets, you have a significant talent gap over. Teams like the Los Angeles Clippers or the Golden State Warriors, or the New Orleans Pelicans. There is such a big talent gap between the Boston Celtics and the next best team in the Eastern Conference, or maybe even the second best team in the Western Conference or the third team in the Western Conference, to where you can compare that type of talent gap from the 2016 Warriors to the 2025 Boston Celtics. And one thing I don't believe is talked about enough with comparing the Warriors to the Boston Celtics and why they went 73-9 and why the Boston Celtics can go 74-8 is the scheme. When the Golden State Warriors went out and became 73-9 and won 73 games in that single season, they had a scheme that a lot of teams could not match. There was always a stretch in the late second, early third, or middle of the third quarter where the Golden State Warriors just rained off a bunch of threes, to the point where the Warriors could be down 7 points and then you blink and they're up 9. With the three-point shooting of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and the small ball lineup of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, Andre Iguodala, and Draymond Green that just could not be stopped, and teams could not match that. To the point where years down the line, there are teams like the Houston Rockets getting rid of Clint Capella, or teams like, hey, Jeff Green, can you play the center? Hey, PJ Tucker, can you play the center? Hey, Rob Covington, can you play the center? And I understand that the Rockets moved Clint Capella because of Russell Westbrook, but it's still not the craziest thing to say that the league was going small and the Rockets wanted to adjust. And I think we're starting to see that with the Boston Celtics. We are starting to get complaints about the NBA to being too reluctant on three-pointers, to where in years down the line, the best way to win, or maybe even right now, the best way to win is to shoot three-pointers at an efficient, high volume, and the only way you give up those threes if it's for an easy layup or an easy dunk. And that is what the Boston Celtics pride their entire offense off of. They're going to shoot threes at an extremely high volume. This season, the Boston Celtics are shooting 55 threes a game. My bad. They're shooting 51. And they're making these three-pointers at a 43% clip, to the point where even when Kristaps Porzingis comes back, they're going to be able to run a 5-out offense to where if you close out the wrong way and Jason Tatum, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Jaylen Brown, they all drive past you. If they drive past you, that is the worst thing you can do. As soon as they get the lane to the rim, somebody's going to collapse, and it's going to be a rotation game until we get an open three or an open dunk, and we just do not have that as much in the NBA as of right now. So much to the point where if the Boston Celtics win again, we're going to see a whole bunch of teams try to recreate this 5-out lineup and shoot threes at a higher volume, to even where we're starting to see teams, for example, the Los Angeles Lakers, who predicate their entire offense on shooting more threes. Another example, the Phoenix Suns with a new head coach in Mike Budenholzer, which was a team the year before was so heavily predicated on the mid-range game, since having guys like Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, who all play majority of their game in the mid-range, they started to push the ball out a little bit more to the three-point line to get that more efficient shot, where three-pointers are more than twos, and having a bunch of guys on the perimeter that can hit three-pointers at a high volume and great efficiency can lead to more open dunks, can lead to more open layups, can put teams in rotation and run around the court like chickens with their heads cut off. So I just think that is a part of this equation that people do not talk about. I think the scheme is so different to the rest of the NBA, and it's the best scheme in the NBA that NBA teams do not have anything to counter it. And now all these teams in the NBA are scrambling to match their scheme because it is the best in the NBA. Very equivalent to what the Warriors did back in 2016. Not only that, the Golden State Warriors had the depth, the coaching, and the defense to where every single night they are going to give everything they have every single night, win games, and end up being 73-9. And I think that is something the Boston Celtics have. They have a phenomenal defense. They're a top 5 offense, a top 5 defense. They have a fantastic head coach. They have 2 guys at the top who are some of the best players in the league. And they're coming off a year where they feel like they have to prove it. And I feel like the Golden State Warriors did the same thing. Prior to that year, the Golden State Warriors went 67-15, and this was a team that was not taken serious because they have not had the championship experience that other teams in the NBA had, like the Cavs, like the Spurs, like the Thunder. And then when they get to the NBA Finals, they go up against a LeBron James-led team with no Kevin Durant or Kevin Love or Kyrie Irving. They end up winning that series in 6, and there was a lot of discourse about how LeBron didn't have his 2 best players and still pushed them to 6 games. So we fast forward to 2024 where the Boston Celtics win a championship and everyone they went against in the Eastern Conference was hurt, whether it's the Cleveland Cavaliers with no Jared Allen or Donovan Mitchell, where it's the Miami Heat with no Jimmy Butler, whether it's the Indiana Pacers with no Tyrese Halliburton. Somebody was hurt in that series. They move on to the Dallas Mavericks, who just had a scheme that did not work against theirs. Jason Tatum moves on to the Olympic Games and gets 2 DMPs in that run, and Jaylen Brown doesn't even get invited. So this Celtics team is coming out hungry, and they're going to try and win every single game possible. So I don't necessarily think that winning 74 games is completely out of the market for this Boston Celtics team. They have the coaching. They have the defense. They have the offense. They have the heavily talented team that is leaps and bounds better than the rest of the NBA. And the one thing I do not think is talked about enough, they have the scheme. The Golden State Warriors were on the rise of a scheme that could not be matched. The NBA was scrambling to match this scheme. And now the Boston Celtics are doing the exact same thing in the NBA to where they have a scheme that works so well, the NBA is scrambling to find players who can shoot the ball at a high level and defend at a high level to have a sheer chance at beating this Boston Celtics team. Let's take a look at what the New York Knicks just did. The New York Knicks gave up 5 first-round picks, Bojan Bogdanovic, Julius Randle, and Dante DiVincenzo for Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns. And their main hope was to get more three-pointers up and to have a very spaced out offense to give guys like Jalen Brunson more opportunities to create. Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby being their wing stoppers for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who can also shoot at a high level and who can also defend at a high level. And now Karl Anthony Towns is that stretch big that they can put on the perimeter so there can be an ultimate spacing lineup to where they can match or try to potentially match the threes that Boston is putting up. So I just don't think that 74-8 is out of the question for this Boston Celtics team. Once again, they have the scheme. Second of all, they have the coach. They have the defense. They have the number one guy. Jason Tatum is playing like a top 5 to 6 player in the NBA at the moment. So all I have to say is don't rule out 74-8 for the Boston Celtics.